been about time. So with that being said, let's dive into this topic in video form. As many of you guys have known, I have made like a 30-page article on breaking down green in set 1 of Dragon Ball Super Fusion World. And I also promised the video goers that I would make an abridged version of it after the article had a chance to breathe. Well, it's been breathing. A lot of people have been coming to that Patreon, and we've got a lot of traction. We're actually doing a breaking down red coming up next. And on top of that, I am also posting my green deck list. So with that being said, we have a lot to go over in this video. I'm going to try to keep it condensed. And if you want to get a deeper look, you can always join the Patreon and read at your own pace, and also just get a much more in-depth comprehensive view than what this video will allow to do in the 10-15 minutes I'm going to be talking. That being said, we're going to try to get a 100 like goal in this video. Yeah, I know you guys can do it. The support for Dragon Ball Super Fusion World has always been great. And let's hop into the subject matter. So it being the elephant in the room, a lot of people have had issues with green. And I think that there's a lot you can break down from this. Essentially, it being the fact that green is not some invincible juggernaut. Green has some very crucial key aspects to it that do make it a little frustrating to face. And the key theme is inevitability. Green has an endgame in the form of 8-cost Broly that is extremely hard to get around. He's hard to remove outside of himself in some multiple card combinations from red. Blue has no way of getting rid of him for the most part, and yellow has no way of getting rid of it. It can only tap him down and hopefully keep him out of the fray. But green is not some invincible wall that no other color can surmount. A couple of things that a lot of people do need to understand, whether you're playing green or whether you're playing against green, is that green ends the game when the game goes too long. But green is incredibly passive for the first 4 or so turns of the game. And with this being said, that is where most decks have their way to operate. As I was saying in a previous video and in the article, you either have to beat green before it can land its endgame, or you have to be on the way to beating green as it lands that endgame. Some decks do have the ability to play once that endgame lands, mostly being the green mirror, which can answer Broly with Broly or have some life gain shenanigans with Gohan, Android 16 as a stall. But you also have the yellow decks, which can tap Broly with the 1-cost Frieza and then tap him down for the next turn with Frieza, Golden Frieza himself. However, if your opponent has another Broly, they can pop that Golden Frieza and then you are in the hot seat the following turn. So you really do have to make sure everything's cool. Yellow also has the ability to use things like Kui to have a little bit of insurance, just like green can have insurance against Broly with Android 16 with a Gohan engraved. So with that being said, you really do have to either beat it before it can get to this point, or have a deck that can, deal with it once it's already out, which isn't much right now. And hopefully that changes for set 2. But what we've got here are essentially your options. I do have to be quite frank. I think blue is the most perilous color right now in the format, because blue has some good, even, steady matchups versus red and yellow. But against green, unless blue high rolls in ways that sometimes only Goku Black can, Vegeta and Trunks can also high roll to be some pretty good aggression numbers, and because of the peel-off engine, they have the ability to power. If blue gets you down to 1 life, there's almost nothing you can do outside of having multiple gigantic meteors to stop the shotgun that blue is capable of pushing on you at about 6 energy or so. 5 to 6 energy. So with that being said, blue kind of sits here at the worst position against green. If you're a green player, I wouldn't just disregard them, because their early game can be ferocious to push you down to low levels, but before you can stabilize. But for the most part, once you stabilize, blue should not really be a problem for you. Android 16 may be a good little countermeasure to opposing Broly's, but currently it's near unremovable by blue. So if you land an Android 16, you can be sure that it's going to lead to a Gohan coming out and giving you another life and another beater to press them with. So we're going to put that kind of out of the way, because blue at this moment is just not very favorable versus green in a lot of cases. Now, don't say it's, oh, well, you still can win, because you can. Yes, Goku Black has the highest Exodia roll in the game, where it just being able to go second with double Mai and a Zamasu and a Goku Black can put yourself in a position where on turn 3 you're dropping a 6 cost that's recycling things from your trash. So Yeah, I'm not discounting blue. I'm just saying they have the least chances of beating green. Now, when you go to red, red is in the interesting place where, like I said, if you can beat green into the ground before it stabilizes, then your remaining couple turns, while you have that, maybe 3-turn radius of potentially dodging Broly's, trying to destroy it, things like that, can be used to beat green out of its last remaining life. That is where you're going to roll when it comes with red decks like Starter Coup and U7 aggro. Whereas yellow has probably the best matchup versus green in that regard, because yellow can, through the power of Raccoon and the Ginyu SR, potentially put 3 bodies on board at one time as soon as they're at 3 energy, and has the ability to just pretty much do it again and again and again. Then once you have these threats coming at you, yellow also has the ability to play cards like Frieza, 4-cost Frieza, that can push a lot of weight for 4 energy. And they also have their double striker as well. So that's one of the first misconceptions I want everybody to get out of their head. Green is not unbeatable. And this isn't against anybody who is having trouble with green. It's more of a kind of look-see into your play style, how you go about the game, how you deck build, and how you methodically play out against green. Because it is not just green just does what it does and it gets there. It is very much so a green is able to make an unfair cap on the game. And that is the one thing. Every deck can high roll, and green does technically have a high roll right now that is darn near unbeatable. For green's high roll to be checked, you generally need yellow or red to high roll just as hard, because they will high roll and be more effective at a part of the game where green is currently not doing anything, such as your first 4 turns of the game. Now, moving out of that matchup and just kind of stating that green is not invincible, green also has some stages of the game, unless you like to play differently, and I can kind of give a little nod to that. So with green, you are spending your first couple turns ramping so that you can reach your late game things. This also kind of brings you into a very, 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 very linear gameplay the first couple turns. You're hoping to get destructive strength on your 3rd energy or your 2nd energy with marker. You're hoping to have a Vegeta or a promo Goku come down the following turn. You're hoping to follow up with a 5-cost Turles or a 5-cost Goku to ramp again, and by then you are going to be able to hit your Broly on the very following turn. And for a lot of people, hitting 8 energy on turn 5 or 6 is almost backbreaking. That's going to be a card that they really have to tap out to get rid of, and often won't even be leaving a body behind when they do it. Yellow, as I said, can play Frieza and just tap it down, but like I said, you do kind of worry that they have this second Broly. Now, because of this, that is, as a green player, your scariest part of the game, and that is what people are going to take advantage of. Green needs to stabilize before it's at like 4 life, or pretty much be on the cusp of stabilization by the time it hits that life. And therein lies your biggest problem with green. It's surviving. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that survival, the decks that are coming at you that ferociously, are not going to be beaten by your quality cards, your cool cards, your SRs. The secret to beating those is generally a higher saturation of combo power, which involves having a lot of 10Ks. I believe my Gohan list currently has 18 10Ks, on top of having 3 gigantic meteors. And realistically, my point is, when you're facing yellow decks, not awakening them so that they have to fully awaken themselves, playing 4 self-awakeners, which normally means they're not awakening earlier than turn 4, sometimes even later if they do not get optimal draws, is a very good thing to have. But the 10Ks, the saturation of 10Ks plus your ramp is going to be the way that you are blocking these 20Ks coming at you, using a 5K to block the leader, blocking the 20Ks. They're going to have to beat you down and give you the life eventually. And meanwhile, you are ramping. So when you're facing these yellow decks, protecting yourself, it doesn't matter if you go down to like 2 cards in hand, protecting your life and ramping is generally the way to go, because if you get to 6 life, if you get to 6 energy and you're at 6 life, they're still gonna have to give it to you at that point. But at that point, you're also being able to play androids and popping things. 5-cost Gohan and popping something and swinging on something. 7-cost Gohan SCR. Broly SR popping something and swinging twice on other things. You're able to hit the board control quite well. So a lot of people don't understand that the secret to surviving a lot of these matchups are your saturation of 10Ks. And that goes for both red and yellow and aggressive blue. So with that being said, on the other end, because I'm jumping around a lot here, I hope you guys are absorbing the information. On the other end, if you are playing against green, you have to like assume that if green is built correctly, if green has had the matchups and green understands what it's doing, if green is built correctly, they are going to be playing more 10Ks than you would normally think, which means that you can even be smarter about this. A lot of decks are using combo power to effectively check your opponent's hand. With green, green does have the best boss cards in the game, and the ramp gets them there. So you are not going to beat them by quality. You have to beat them by quantity. Anytime you go neutral with a green leader, you are taking out one card from their hand. That is why 20Ks across the board are so good going into green. So don't sit there and hit them thinking, okay, I'll go up to 25. Because a lot of the times, if you go to 20, they'll still have to ditch a 10K. Sometimes they'll have 5Ks, but let your bodies that are bigger do that bigger work. Do not hand out, in most of my opinions, do not hand out attempting to turn a 20K into a like 25K for no reason. You know, if you feel like you need to put on the gas, you can throw in a 10K, but let the bigger bodies do the work. When you play a 25K, let that guy swing. That's why those vanillas are so important, because that will automatically draw out a 10K. But if you've been taxing them off of their 10Ks by swinging neutral, swinging neutral, swinging neutral, they might have to drop 2 5Ks. They may have to burn a gigantic meteor, things like that. You're going to want to hit them as many times as possible until the hand just gets so low it's not even funny. So that is why some of the best strategies against green have been the strategies that go wide. The red playing 1 and 2 drops that can go neutral. The yellow is playing 20K after 20K after 20K after 20K. And then both decks are also finishing off with 35K or higher threats to push the remaining cards out of hand, shotgun, and deal the fatal damage. So that's the kind of 2 ways you have to come at it from, and it's not really like a huge secret. Red has got to, or if you're playing like against aggro as green, your only task is to survive and ramp while you're doing it, because you have the better late game. And if you are playing against them, as simple as it is, while it's still being complicated, your option, your only real path to victory is, since your cards will never compete with their late game, you need, for the most part, you need to be able to beat them down in the early game, mid game, and finish them off as they start to get to their late game. So yeah, I'm gonna give a couple quick words from our sponsors, and then we're going to finish up the discussion for this video. So when it comes to sponsors, I got 2. And one of those is Mystic TCG, based in Missouri. They are an excellent store that actually holds a lot of tournaments themselves. But you can go down the link in the description and use the code UNIXTCG to get discounts off of your order, to make sure you can get all of your TCG needs. They carry all the popular games, and they're always growing. Eden is an excellent business owner, and he is constantly on the grind to expand and make sure that he has the hottest product. So just go on there, just find their stuff. This is a great place to pre-order and always have your product. And then outside of that Missouri store, we have G3. And G3 is my Canadian store. And that is going to actually be able to have all of those tournaments and events above this border that separates the US from Canada. They do ship outside the US, but there is going to be more shipping. So this is more for my Canadian viewers and friends. But yeah, they hold lots of events. Jawdat also is aggressively trying to expand. And yeah, they also have a code that you can use from the description and to get just less money paid for your TCG addictions. It is an addiction, but it's a healthy addiction, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, let's get back to the content. So starting to round out this video, because likely you're going to be facing, of course, the aggro matchup or the mirror. Those are the things that you're going to be having to worry about the most. Now, when you're facing the aggro matchup, I pretty much explained for the most part what you should be looking out for. It's going to be quantity over quality. You're going to be dropping your 10Ks to defend yourself, ramping, getting to your inevitable in game. But when it comes to the mirror, there's a lot of whackness that comes into that. And like I said, I go into everything you've heard in this video so much more in detail in my Patreon article, which will be in the description of the Patreon. But When you face the mirror, it's a little rough because you guys are going to be playing footsies, both trying to get the same rank strategy on. However, it is very important in the mirror to get your opponent down to their 4 life before they get to their Broly turns, because once Broly happens, once you guys start trading those, you're going to be really looking into making sure the board doesn't kill you the following turn, just as much as you're going to be trying to close out the game by beating your opponent's life to 0 in the following turns. So with that being said, if your opponent gets to start getting to 8 energy with like 6 life, you're pretty much just sitting there in a very, very disadvantageous spot. However, if you guys have played green, you know sometimes missing destructive strength can be really rough. Missing a 4-drop ramper can be very rough. So when you are playing, it's good to measure your offense. You definitely have some turns to get them down lower. There are many turns in the beginning to mid game for green that a tap out happens, and those are the turns where you can apply pressure. If you can get Turles on board, that's even better because he will apply critical pressure, potentially dropping off good cards that your opponent can abuse later, such as Broly 8's Gigantic Meteors, which are, in my opinion, 2 of the best cards in the game, possibly 1 and 2. And then you are able to just not add on to their hand advantage while you bring them closer to death. Now, a lot of people who are playing the aggro versions are also having trouble against Broly because Broly has to have you playing differently. And a lot of decks have made their ways around that. When it gets to yellow will aggress you down with 20Ks, but let the 40K Frieza, the 30K Cooler, and the 35K Golden Frieza start pushing most of the weight after to make sure that they clear over this without having to, you know, give their entire board. And then combo power will pretty much do the rest. Now, when you're playing with red has constructed itself in a way where a lot of the cards end up being 25K regardless. You have your Krillins, which go to 25K. You have your promo Gokus that go to 25K. Your SR Gokus are going to go to 30. You have a lot of cards that will naturally in the U7 Goku deck or the Starter Ku deck push themselves to 30 or be pushed to 30. And that's just a really, really good thing, 25-30. A lot of decks are also incorporating 3-cost vanillas because they will automatically go neutral with Broly. So I don't think it's possible to ignore this. And to be honest, it's of no negative side effects. Making sure that as many of your cards hit a 25K or higher stat line when you need to press is going to be good, because against Broly, that's going to be what you need to apply pressure. Against other decks, they're just big beaters that apply more pressure than a 20K anyway. You still need a 10K instead of a 5K to get out of it. So there are ways that you can build your deck. Another thing about Broly, and this works for both the mirror and other decks, is that Broly does have to take 1 of its life simply to awaken. Meaning, if you make the attack on their 4 life extremely powerful, or too powerful for them to, you know, avoid without dropping half their hand, they're going to have to go down to 2, which leaves them incredibly open to a potential shotgun, and you can kind of force that. You don't just go for the shotgun the next turn because their hand could probably still be healthy. However, if you want to potentially go in further in on their life every turn and then wait for them to do something like tap out with the Broly, that is the turn that you play your double strike and put your entire hand behind it. And unless they have super combos and too much juice, you might actually just get there. So that is a whole lot of nuance that you just have to end up playing with. The tap out turn is a strong turn because Broly hit the board, but it's also a weak turn because you can't use Gigantic Meteor. And whatever you do, unless you are yellow and physically cannot get rid of it, you need to get rid of 5-drop Goku. 5-drop Goku leads to so many rough things. It leads to Broly being able to use its draw and plus 5K without having to minus energy. It leads to Gohan being able to be a menace on defense and offense. And it leads to insane plays using things like Big Bang Kamehameha to remove something without ever taking the actual minus. Or, worse yet, multiple copies of Instant Kamehameha breaking a shotgun that you thought was for surely going to happen on a tapped out leader. So those are pretty much the things you have to think about when you are playing against green. And I know I said a lot, and I know a lot of people have been watching these things, but I guarantee you, watching most of my videos, plus this video, it'll make the sense it needs to. I'm sure it makes sense already in this video if you've just been playing the game, but just understand that it is not impossible to beat this. Now, I didn't want this to get over 20 minutes, and so I'm going to bring it to a close now. However, like I said, if you want the full kit and caboodle, you can always go to my Patreon, which will be linked, and that's going to allow you to have that access to that 30-page article about this sort of playstyle. Now, with that being said, I want to wish you guys a happy day. I will be at a wedding by the time you guys are on my flight to a wedding by the time you guys are watching this video, and so I'm gonna have content currently going out. We have my Android list currently on the site, which is a different take on green. It's more of a aggro green than it is a late game sit on its laurels green. We have videos coming out actually in 2 days. I'll have my next video out. I wanted to space them out a little bit, but yeah, there's gonna be a cool amount of content, and since we are back with matchmaking being fixed, we'll actually be able to play some God rank matches that I think actually matter. So we're gonna be doing some polls, see what decks you want to play. Maybe I'll let that be the Patreon members thing, or we'll do it in the Discord. Either way, we're gonna be having a lot of fun here. Gonna set up the streaming schedule while I'm out, and you guys should be able to see me play either Dragon Ball Super Fusion World or do a playthrough of the Kingdom Hearts series. We'll alternate between both, and then finally, I want to give a thank you to everybody that's been showing support on the Patreon side. That has been so great. I mean, I love all the support, but I just have to give the extra shout out to the extra oomph that people give on the Patreon. And the last thing I want to do before I type this video is give a special shout out to all the people in the realm of X. That's the highest tier, and that is the Big Daddy Flapjacks, the Burars, the Bryces, the Kevins, the Mr. Top Decks. Thank you guys. But we also have a couple of aristocrats as well, and that's Eric R's, the Jonathan B's, the Kizan K's, the Marios. Yeah, thank you guys. It all goes a lot of the way to helping me be able to do this, and I'm gonna keep doing better and better content. Make sure that if you're on the Patreon and you're watching this right now, you go on there, because we are giving away starter decks for One Piece, both the Uta and the Sanji and Zoro, but we're also giving away code cards. Right now I believe it's 13 winners of 5 code cards, maybe 6, I gotta check, and I'm gonna be trying to get more as we go along to make it sweeter and sweeter. So thank you guys. I will see you next time. Later.